Welcome back. We're talking about the political challenges facing Libya. Reports have emerged that the Islamic State may have doubled its size in the country. Analysts in neighboring Egypt say the new Libyan government needs to move quickly to prevent the jihadist group from gaining more of a foothold. We'll get more now from CCTV's Najla El Mangoush.
It's been clear for months to regional powers such as Egypt that ISIL would build on its bridgehead in Libya. The group has lost more and more ground to coalition airstrikes in Iraq and Syria, but the ongoing chaos in much of Libya has made it easy for ISIL to flourish there and recruit. It's now thought to number at least 6,000 fighters. For Egypt, the key is restoring strong government in Tripoli and giving that government the weapons to fight back.
ISIL is benefiting from the political gap, the absence of a strong government in its territories. Egypt is in the lead of the concerned countries who realized that and is working very hard to lift the arms embargo over the Libyan government.
During his visit to Tripoli, Italy's Foreign Minister Paolo Gentiloni said the arms embargo could soon be lifted. But that depends on Libyans backing the new unity government led by Prime Minister Fayez al-Sarraj. Al-Sarraj currently needs to win over a rival parliament in Tobruk.
If the unity government gains local support, besides international recognition, and it starts operations, ISIL's expansion will freeze. Libya's neighbors, Egypt, Tunisia and Algeria, are trying to support Fayez al-Sarraj's government. This will prevent ISIL extending its influence.
It has come down to a race in Libya between the two rivaling parliaments and ISIL. Analysts say the clock is ticking. And the longer Libyans take to support the unity government, the stronger ISIL will become. Adil Mahroui, CCTV, Cairo.
Well, let's continue our conversation now with our panel. Alan, let's pick up on that last point there made in that report. Analysts saying that the longer Libyans take to support this unity government, the stronger Islamic State will become. It's a point that you made just a moment ago, that Islamic State already has a significant foothold in the country. But the longer Libyans take to support this government, will it entrench Islamic State even further?
Well, I think that the existence of the Islamic State in Libya is actually one of the things that is driving Libyans to consider a unity government. Prior to the existence of ISIS, the Libyan factions were sort of happily fighting with each other for turf. But as ISIS started to take more and more of that turf, some of the competing Libyan factions realized that unless there were going to be some unification of the Libyan factions into a Libyan government, then ISIS would take more and more and more of the territory. So the existence of ISIS is actually providing some hope, but still, it's a long road ahead for forming a unity government. Your correspondent talked about a competing government in the east, in Tobruk, but that's only one of the competing governments. In fact, the capital is controlled by another competing government that has never been recognized by the international community. I'd also like to say just one other thing about President Obama and his comment that his greatest mistake was to fail to do nation building in Libya after overthrowing the government and destroying the country. And it's interesting, President Obama, when he looked at his predecessor, George W. Bush, he didn't say that George W. Bush's greatest mistake was to fail to do nation building in Iraq after overthrowing the government in Iraq and destroying Iraq. He said the failure, the great mistake, was intervening in Iraq in the first place and overthrowing the government. So I think either President Obama is being disingenuous to try to preserve his legacy in defending this intervention, or he has a cognitive blind spot. He can't realize that he did in Libya almost the identical thing that George W. Bush did in Iraq. That is, on the basis of phony information, he went in, overthrew a government, destroyed a country, and took a country that was actually an ally in the war on terror and turned it into a safe haven for terrorists.
Sukant?
Well said. Yeah, absolutely. Well said, the former colleague who just spoke. You know, when it comes to Daesh, let's remember that the leading NATO powers teamed up with Daesh forces and many others in destroying what was the best country in perhaps the entire global south in terms of the living standards, etc., healthcare, education, housing. That was Libya. Now, you've got Daesh in Sirte. Before you had Ansar Sharia, which is another supremacist death squad. Daesh took over, as I said, thanks to the Mizrati death squads there as well. But also you've got Daesh in ties and suits in Tripoli as well. None other than the leading Daesh death squad leader of the Libyan Islamic Fighting Group, Mr. Belhaj, was a primary and senior ally, albeit junior in the grand scheme of things, of NATO in destroying Tripoli and Libya in the first place in 2011. It's Mr. Belhaj and these death squads in Tripoli who are using Sabrata as a training ground for the recruitment of death squads from Tunisia and other places, training them, financing them, and then flying them into Turkey to enter Syria. Libya is performing a similar role that Afghanistan did in the 1980s as a place where the neo-colonialists and imperialists can recruit these death squads and terrorists, train them and arm them, etc., and then proliferate them according to their strategic interests, particularly in Syria, in Iraq. So really we have to be honest and see what the true nature of the alliances were in 2011 and how they continue today and how they're being manipulated.
Najla, what's your view on this? Has Libya become a haven for groups like Islamic State?
Yes, I just have comment to Mr. Sukant about we didn't actually invite the international community to come to our and you know target Gaddafi, and also there's other facts about the early days in the revolution when people decided to protest in peaceful way against the regime. They were actually, you know, African Missourians tried to kill the people, and I was seeing them, you know.
Disgusting lie. This is a disgusting lie.
Yeah,
absolutely
it's not lie because I was witness that. With all my respect, I was witnessing that with my colleagues in the court.
No, the rebels in Benghazi, their first act was to string up black people and to chop them up. You can see that on YouTube. It was based on a blatant lie. Let's not whitewash this.
Well, I was witnessing that, and you have the choice to believe or no. Yes. We have a lot of outcomes that we can share with Iraq experience and Afghanistan, and there is a lot of failure, but also there is uniqueness and there is a legacy of dictatorship for more than 42 years. There is discrimination, there is violence, have been, you know, structurally and organized against the people. I witnessed all this dictatorship. I grew up in Libya. I just left, you know, Libya from 3 years ago. So I really know everything.
Has Libya become a haven for Islamic State?
Yes, yes, become heaven for all the different militia groups who have different ideologies and agenda.
Okay, Sukant, I want to get a quick response from you, and then I want to go to Alan. But go ahead first.
Yeah, I mean, the sister has said she lived in Libya until the last 3 years, so it was good enough for her to live until the last 3 years. And now she's admitting herself it's a safe haven for death squads and terrorists, and she had to escape and flee the country in the last 3 years. So enjoy your freedom and liberation that you invited NATO to deliver. Actually, what's happening in Libya, there's movements of the tribes, the social tribes, all across Libya who are patriotic, who are anti-colonial, who are developing a mass-based patriotic movement towards justice, which is being ignored and being countered by NATO. And also there's Haftar's forces, which has a military blockade by the NATO powers, because they also are teaming up with justice-oriented, unity-oriented Libyans in cleaning up the country from the death squads. This process is continuing. More and more Libyans will come back, and they will soon, well, they will soon start on the path to returning Libya to the leadership of the African world, to the leadership of the Arab world in the global south that once it had from 1969 to 2011.
Okay, Alan, final question to you. Will this new unity government survive?
Well, I would point to something that Najla said early in the show today, and that is that the only way to really form a unity government in Libya would be through true negotiations of the Libyan parties themselves. And that is a long process that requires patience, and the international community did not have patience. And the reason is that the international community wanted to do something about ISIS. And so what they did is they tried to short-circuit the process and said, okay, well, you folks can't agree, so we'll impose on you a unity government. And that unity government was then rejected by the two existing governments. That's not going to work. What you need to do is go back to the table and try and get all the Libyan interests around the table and have them negotiate and make compromises until they come to an agreement for a true unity government. At that point, you have at least a chance. If once you have a unity government, then you have to get all the militias to support it. And if that could happen, then you have a chance of having a unity government, a united army. And if you have that, then you could probably make fairly quick work of ISIS.
Okay, that's where we have to leave it. Thanks to all of you for joining us.